Hey out there in the world. Jay Cherry here. Hope all you guys are doing fine. Um, got a couple of things I wanted to talk to you guys about. This has been something I've been thinking about for a while, and I wanted to bring this topic up. I have a couple of videos that I want to share with you, and also some links and stuff which should be showing up right in the title, at least on Facebook and YouTube. And then on Twitter the links don't show up. I'll try to put those in a thread for you guys out there on Twitter, because I'm streaming on 3 different platforms right now, or at least hopefully I am streaming on 3 different platforms. But the thing I want to talk to you guys about today is called the Smith Mund Act of 1948. And what this act was a means, okay, so the United States has used propaganda to send to other countries for a long time. So in 1948, they have the Smith Mund Act, where you can't propagandize the American people. So over the years, a few things have been happening to our media. And by over the years, I mean, in my lifetime as an adult, and what I'm remembering while I was in college studying broadcast communications, I'm going to date myself here. The 1996 Telecommunications Act that Bill Clinton signed into law basically allowed the merging of a small conglomerate of companies to control all of the news. Sorry, I had something in my mouth there. Anyway, so it allowed all of the media to be consolidated into the hands of a small few people. So the Smith-Mund Act was repealed, and it was signed into law via the National Defense Authorization Act. You guys remember Barack Obama? Now, this was during Barack Obama's tenure. So President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act. Is very controversial in many different ways, but today we're going to just be concentrating on the Smith-Mund portion of this. The Defense Act also allows for American citizens to be locked up indefinitely without a lawyer, without due process, without what's typical for what we would think that the rights you would have in the United States. And as we're seeing with 2020, that those rights are being totally stripped, ignored. So let me get into the Smith-Mund Act, because there's so much going on right now. You say to yourself, how is this happening? Let me take you over here. I want to share the screen. So bear with me here, guys, as I get a screen up. I'm going to put something in here. If I lose you all, bear with me. I know that's here. You see my green screen. I want to share a screen and get rid of myself over here for now. So this is the Smith-Mund Act right here, guys. So what this is, and I'm going to show you just a little bit. We're just going to read just a tad little bit of this. Let me see if I could blow this up for you all here without losing it. I'm losing it a little bit. I'm going to highlight what I'm going to read to you guys. So this article is linked in the show here. So this is what it is. So there's a high probability that you have never heard. There is a high probability. So these are the things I'm going to read about to here. There is a high probability that you have never heard of the Smith-Mund Act of 1948, which would compact with not knowing or caring about the Smith-Mund Modernization Act. All right, sorry, I said it was repealed. They modernized it. Both these laws are critically important and impact our lives directly. So time to get up to speed. The Smith-Mund Modernization Act, SAMA, or SMA, was buried in the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act for good reason, because it repealed the 1948 Smith-Mund Act, also known as the U.S. Information and Education Act, which authorized the State Department to engage in propagandizing foreign countries as a form of public diplomacy. The SMA established that via the Broadcasting Board of Governors, BBG, Voice of America, VOA, and Radio Free Europe, RFE, the United States Department Office of Public Affairs were authorized to disseminate propaganda to foreign publics, but were strictly prohibited from releasing that same propaganda in America for public consumption. Put simply, our government was permitted to lie to the people in other countries, but not to us here at home. The prohibition was lifted in 2012 when SAMA was signed into law by President Obama, allowing for the first time propaganda disseminated by our government to foreign publics to now be released for the first time on the United States public. The Smith-Mund Modernization Act. So there you have it, folks. The Smith-Mund Modernization Act gave our government the ability to sell us propaganda. So I'm going to play this video for you guys. This is at UConn, and you're going to see here I'm going to have a conversation with a group of college students. And I want you to think about the Smith-Mund Modernization Act. I said it was repealed. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I misspoke. It was modernized for your new and improved version of government state-sponsored information. So this is a video that I did of up at UConn when Joe Biden came to visit. My goal whenever I go to these events is to have a dialogue and ask questions and talk to people, because it's ultimately in talking to people where we learn and we can grow from each other. And I had some good dialogue with the students and some not so good dialogue with the students, but it all went well. So kudos to the students up at UConn who did talk to me, and we had a good conversation together. So this is that video.
Where the flu went. We went from 35,000 flu 1 year. But you people keep claiming that because we're not wearing the mask, COVID is spreading. So how come COVID's supposedly spreading, but the flu is gone?
Because COVID's more contagious.
No, we're talking about...
I want a choice. If I want to take it, I'll take it. I don't care if you do, but I'm not taking it. I just want choice, that's all.
Okay, that's 4 people. What are you talking about?
Well, I want you young men to know about myocarditis, okay? And I want you to know and understand.
I'm familiar with it. What is it?
It's inflammation of the heart, okay? And this is happening to young men in your age group.
Hey, I already got a big heart. We're not worried about that.
But it's like, in all seriousness,
But doesn't coronavirus cause inflammation of the heart as it is? It's a side effect.
They say, okay, I've had a doctor tell me that. The shot is more of a risk than actually contracting the virus.
My dad's a doctor. Both my parents are doctors. That's not true at all.
Do you believe in vaccinations, period? Like,
I believe you should have the right to make a choice about vaccination.
Abortion.
Okay? Abortion is a personal choice. It's not my business. Okay? Abortion is a personal choice between a woman and her doctor and nobody else. Your medical decisions are personal choices between...
Against ligma?
Those are the things they don't...
Ligma ball!
It's really sad that you can't show respect. I'm trying to have a
I don't show respect to
conversation.
anyone ever. That's kind of
Technology has advanced so much.
That's a sad thing.
It's a Friday, and you're out here, you're not at work. What are you doing right now? What do you do for work? What do you do? I'm studying mechanical engineering. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Tell me. How much money? You're hiding your face at the camera. I love it. Let me see your face. Look me in the eye. Tell me what you do. You do nothing. You're here promoting nothing.
But you know what you're...
Like, this isn't what it's supposed to be.
My body, my choice, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if the government said you couldn't get an abortion.
But it is. We all have family in Texas.
We're a constitutional republic. We're not in Texas. Let Texas fight that
But
battle.
you guys all talk about a divided nation. Shouldn't we all work together to, like...
I'm worried about Connecticut because I can only handle my small world.
But have you ever heard of, like, the poem that it's like they came for the... What is it? It was like they came for the Jews. I said nothing. They came for this. I said nothing. They came for this. But you're saying I'm only worried about Connecticut. Now you see what's happening in Texas, and you're like, oh, I live in Connecticut. I don't care about Texas.
No.
You're next. One state does it, another will follow.
First of all, it just went to court in Texas, and it was actually a TRO was put on it. So your point right now is no, because it's not an issue right now. The Texas judge put a stop to it, and there's a legal.
Agree with me that you should have less power to the corporation and more towards the people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I...
Would you agree?
Free. Why don't you get it?
Vaccine's free. Vaccine's not free though.
I have that too.
I got it for free.
Somebody paid. Yeah, but the vaccine's not free. The government paid for the vaccine. It's not free.
So if the government
The government paid for the vaccine. It's not free.
But we didn't personally pay for it.
But it's not free. It may be free to you. It may be free to you, but the vaccine is
But there are
not free.
numerous
I did not get any money out of my paycheck.
Yeah, but you didn't pay for it, but the government. So I do suggest that you check out the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. That was started in 1986 via the National Vaccine Injury Act.
Yeah, and
you hear
only-
the word injury act.
Yeah, and only 0.11% of people who could receive the
Yeah,
vaccine
but
actually
okay,
get
so
injuries.
Harvard
I
Pilgrim
get it.
did a
I understand
study
exactly where
of the
you're coming
VAERS
from.
system,
There are
and they
people that
found
do
that only
There are
between
people
1
that
and
brag
10
about it.
injuries are actually
literally
reported.
people
That
that
for a second.
They're patented so that way companies don't have a monopoly over the vaccine itself. If that makes sense. Like,
Well, they're patented because somebody is making serious money on them, and if you patent something, that means you own it. It's your proprietary right. That also means that you have the rights to certain protections under public-private partnerships. Do you know what public-private partnerships are?
why don't you explain them to me?
A public-private partnership is a quasi-government entity that works outside of the full scope of the public's knowledge because of proprietary rights as a business. The whole idea of public-private partnerships is that it's supposedly help fund things. However, what you're getting is large corporations who are taking over law and creating policy that is not done with an elected official. How does that make you feel?
Oh, I actually hate that. I think the idea that corporations can actually rule with money and lobby for such things like laws to their senators and their representatives through their money is bullshit, actually. So I'm glad that we're on the same page about that. But
So what makes pharma so different?
no, there's
Why do you trust Pfizer? Why do you trust Pfizer?
I trust Pfizer because the vaccine's FDA approved.
But did you hear me tell this young man just a minute ago that the vaccine that they approved is the Comirnaty, which is not even in the United States right now, that's in Europe.
How is that a logical argument for why the vaccine's not good?
Pfizer was convicted of fraud, malpractice fraud. Anyway, Pfizer paid out one of the biggest, $3 billion for fraud. They were convicted by the United States government for fraud. So in the last 20 years, Pfizer has had to pay out billions of dollars for lying about their products. So why is it that you see the corporation as being the problem, but pharma is immune?
I never said pharma was immune. In fact, big pharma is a large part a problem in our current politics because big pharma is what dictates the prices of medication. So stuff like, let's say that you go to Canada, insulin is practically free because to get rid of or get around big pharma or corporations, you need to socialize stuff. You need to make sure that the government has control of it and then disperses it to the public because the government has the duty of protecting its citizens. That's the whole point.
But here's the problem now that I just talked to you about, public-private partnerships. That's no longer the case. The government has been infiltrated by the very industries that we expect for it to police, like the FDA, like the CDC. Are you aware that Scott Gottlieb, who sat on the FDA, is now on the board of Pfizer?
So, from excuse me.
He's from Connecticut.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. So,
I just was curious if you knew Scott Gottlieb from Connecticut, who also sits on Lamont's reopening committee.
cool. So,
Public-private partnership.
what I'm hearing though is that you're against
That's the problem.
so
No, but that's you're
so-
avoiding the actual problem.
So the problem
how
I'm having.
can the
Can you like
government-
shut up for a second?
No, I'm not okay. If once you insult me, then I'm done with you.
The problem I'm having.
So that was UConn. And as you can see, the modernization, the Smith-Mund Modernization Act of 2012 that was snuck into the National Defense Authorization Act and signed into law by President Obama, which allowed for the state to propagandize the American people, us. So when you're watching the news, and you see, I don't watch very much corporate media. I do see clips online, and I do pay attention because I think it's important to be aware of what media people are ingesting and what's going on in the world, which is obvious, right? We need to know these things. So I will see some of it. I'm very curious about locally what's happening. So I'll watch more local news clips than anything else, because that's my main concern right now, because the biggest effect we can have in our world is locally, in our own state, with our own state local government. That's where we have the most power, and that's where we need to regain hold of our power. Before I get too far ahead of myself, because this is going to connect to the local election and things that were happening. But so with this whole media, you'll notice that they don't ask questions. They'll put a question out. So there was a clip, and I want to show you guys this. There's a clip. I have two clips to show you. There was a clip that was done. It was an interview with the Department of Public Health, the new head of Department of Public Health here in Connecticut. I'm going to butcher her name, Janita, so I apologize about that. I'm butchering her last name. Anyway, this woman is newly appointed to the Department of Public Health. And when the reporter is asking her questions, the way that he'll lay it out, like he asks a question about mandates and he'll lay it out and he'll say like other things are mandated. He doesn't ask real questions that a journalist would ask. It's like he's been prepped. The Smith-Mund Modernization Act. It's like he's been prepped and he's asking questions that are approved, or that the interviewee knows what those questions are going to be. You guys could see it for yourself, and I'm sure many of you that are tuning into me do see this for yourself and are very well aware of it. So now, and if you haven't heard of the Smith-Mund Modernization Act, now you have an understanding of how this has just gotten so out of control. So we had the Smith-Mund Act in 2012. Before 2012, we had the last nail in the coffin for the fourth estate in the United States was the 1986 Telecommunication Act, signed into law by Bill Clinton, which basically allowed for the consolidation of a very small handful of entities to own and control the media. So when Donald Trump came in and started saying fake news, the reason why it's stuck is because it's true, okay? And it's not about Trump saying it. It's just that what he said was 100% on point. And that's why it's stuck, because things that are true, they kind of stick like that. You know, they just stick in the consciousness. And so then fake news got conflated with, oh, that's just right-wingers and Trumpers saying that, when really it's a nonpartisan thing. Fake news affects us all. Truly it does. And it's not a right-wing talking concept. But let me just bring up these slides, because this is where it really connects, because here are these young college kids, right? And you go to college and you want to, grow your mind, right? And think. And we're trying to have a conversation with them about very real things that they're injecting into their body as young, healthy men or young, healthy students. And this is particularly, it affects all, male or female. But the myocarditis issue is definitely something that's more within the male. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that came from the FDA's approval letter to Pfizer. Now, what they approved is called comorbidity. And what is under the EUA is called the BioNTech 162b2. So they're different, and there's a slight variation in the formula. What that slight variation in the formula is, we don't know, because of proprietary protections. They are protected under the proprietary rights, and then these things are enmeshed within our own government under public-private partnerships, which is a huge, huge problem. When you start to peel the onion of public-private partnerships, you'll go all the way to the Trilateral Commission. You'll go all the way to Rockefeller, and you'll go all the way to the UN, and you'll go to these places and you'll start to see how this all connects, even to the World Economic Forum. And it's very interesting when you start to peel those layers and start to really ask questions and look deeply. Public-private partnerships, the propagandized media, state propagandized media, which is what they do in communist countries, okay? And this is something that I never would have imagined in a million years, that I would be so censored. When I went to college, studied broadcast communications, I never would have imagined, with all this amazing technology and the ability to broadcast from my own studio and be able to do this on social media and the internet and do all that. and then to have it plugged up or censored, or to be not had my YouTube channel taken down. This is a new channel, by the way. It's a pirate channel. It may not last long. I'm also on Rumble and put videos up there. But in the Smith-Mund Modernization Act, these failing broadcast stations, they were failing in ratings. They're failing in their viewership. These people are not interested in the nonsense. People are hungry for the information. They're hungry for real journalism. So what it did is it also gave money. The state has money to give to the media to propagandize us. And then this is all hidden, guys. You got to go read the National Defense Authorization Act 2012, the Smith-Mund Modernization Act, because it was buried in that. And I'm like, how do they even do this? How did we get here? I mean, it's just crazy. So let me pull up these slides. This is from Pfizer. Why journalists aren't asking these questions. Any journalist asking any of the CDC, Fauci, any of them, they're all asking softball questions. It's ridiculous. It's like Mickey Mouse world. This isn't journalism. They don't ask these kinds of questions, because this is what I would ask if I were able to have Michelle Walensky sitting in front of me or being able to interview her. These are the questions that I would ask. How come vaccine-associated myocarditis is the most clinically significant identified risk? I mean, that's the first question I'd ask. It's like the first sentence. This is from the FDA, by the way, guys. Okay, so I just highlighted these red parts for you so you could see. So it says, for estimation of risk, the model took a conservative approach by relying on non-chart confirmed cases from a U.S. healthcare claims database. Thus, the estimates of excess risk in the model are higher than the rates estimated from the reports to VAERS, which I find very interesting because they know there is a signal there. They know there is a signal there, and they don't even address this, okay? They address it in their paperwork. And then it says, for estimation of benefits and model output was highly dependent on the assumed COVID incidence as well as assumptions about vaccine efficacy. And then it goes on to say this last thing. You could read all this. I did put a link into the FDA where you can get into all of their stuff, and says the worst case scenario with low COVID-19 incidence reflecting the July 2021 nadir and the same somewhat diminished vaccine effectiveness as in the most likely scenario. What? What? Crazy. Yes, absolutely, Salt Lakers. Free Julian Assange. It's a good point to bring up, because, you know, when I started to really be awake to what the media and the government's relationship was thanks to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Because reading through those WikiLeaks and the Podesta files was mind-blowing. And there's a lot of information in there that you guys could still go pick off and read, and you really will see how embedded the government is with the media. And even though I was in school at the time of the 1996 Telecommunication Act, and I heard whisperings in the wind about the Smith Mund Act, it still took me till 2016 and the good work of WikiLeaks to really be like, holy cow, this is crazy. So thank you for bringing that up, because I meant to say that about Julian Assange, who still, till this day, sits rotting in a prison cell for being a journalist, and one that's never had a retraction, by the way. WikiLeaks has never had a retraction. They hated him. They were locking him up and tormenting that man for giving you the truth. Because what these entities that hide behind our government don't want to be seen. They don't want you to have access to the truth. They don't want real journalists to ask real questions. That's the truth. So let me take you to these other disturbing things here. So this also goes into here where they're just talking about the prediction. The model predicts that the benefits of prevented COVID-19 hospitalization, ICU admissions, and death would clearly outweigh the predicted risk of vaccine-associated myocarditis under all conditions examined. But that predicted excess cases of vaccine-associated myocarditis would exceed COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths under the worst case scenario. Additionally, the worst case scenario model predicts prevention of 13,000 cases of non-hospitalized COVID-19 per million vaccinated males 16 to 17 years of age, which would include prevention of clinically significant morbidity and or long-term sequelae anticipated with some of these cases. Finally, the model does not account for indirect societal public health benefits of vaccination. Considering these additional factors, FDA concluded that even under the worst case scenario, the benefits outweigh the risk. But wait, because myocarditis isn't mild, it's myocarditis, and there's nothing mild about inflammation of the heart. The heart is the most sensitive muscle in the body. If you get scar tissue in the heart, it's with you forever. If you get inflammation, it is very likely that it will cause scar tissue. This is the last thing that is really just stuck out to me, and I found it so interesting because when the FDA did approve this for the EUA, see how confusing it is? Because normally, why would the FDA, if we had an approved vaccine for adults, right? Why wouldn't they just have the off-label use for children and put it through that way, right? Instead, they put it off as an EUA. Oh, more research, which should concern everyone because children aren't in a high-risk group. Children are like, they're not in a high-risk group. And in fact, scientists that I follow say the children are like the vacuum cleaners. They clean up and they help us build herd immunity in a real way. They build the antibodies, and then we hug and touch each other, and we're humans, and we interact, and it builds up this herd immunity. It still is even beyond our own understanding, the power of the immune system and how our interactions with each other strengthen all of us together, you know. And anyway, I can go on in a tangent. Let me show you this. So I thought this was really interesting, and this really disturbed me a lot. So I'm just going to read to you this major thing over here. So what they say is, it's all right, I'll just read this whole thing. Mitigation of the observed risks and associated uncertainties will be accomplished through labeling, including warning statements. So, you know, they're putting this out there, but none of this is like, you know, they're going to put warnings, right? And through continued safety, surveillance, and post-marketing studies to further assess and understand these risks, including an immunogenicity and safety study of lower dose levels of comorbidity in individuals 12 to 30. A study of lower dose levels. Guys, did you ever hear that before? Did you hear that in the media? Are you hearing that they're giving men 12 to 30 years old a lower dose to see if that reduces the risk of myocarditis? Have you heard any of these TV experts go around talking about it? No. And if they're doing it outside of our purview. And they can do this and hide in plain sight with the privilege of public-private partnerships. And that is just going to be a theme. I think I'm going to just bring that up every time I do a podcast. I'm just going to talk about public-private partnerships because it is the cancer within our republic. It is what is destroying our republic. Here in the state of Connecticut, I've written extensively about corruption in Connecticut, tying all of these parts together into a very long article that has all the resources. You can find it on my website, jcherrypresents.com. The title of the article is Ned Lamont and the Lost Constitution State, and goes all into the history of public-private partnerships, the concept of public-private partnerships, and how we've gotten here, because that really is how we're here. And it's very distressing and disturbing that our media is failing us and is really become an arm of our government as a weapon against us and our children now. So now I want to share with you, I'm going to share a clip with you guys of Governor Lamont talking about, here, let me just pull him up. Hold on a second while I get this here. Sorry about that, guys. Here we go. So actually, no, this isn't Governor Lamont. I have a clip of him too. This is a hearing that happened today at the federal government in Washington, D.C. This is an interaction. I'm not sure who the guy is questioning, or it's a senator from somewhere, but this is an interaction with Michelle Walensky, talking about some very interesting things that you really want to hear. So let me just play you this little clip of this video. Hold on a second while I pull her up and play her. Try and
couple
blow it up a
things.
little bit, too.
As I walked in, I came in late. One of either you or Dr. Fauci were saying that the reason that we're not saying that natural immunity is protective as is a vaccine, even though there's recent publications showing that 6 to 8 months out, 92% of those with natural immunity have T cells, B cells, and antibodies that would be considered adequate to protect. And indeed, B cell continues to climb. That we don't have data. Now, in your response to Mr. Casey, you just mentioned that CDC has access to tens of thousands of EHRs. And I've been told that HHS or CDC has access to patient-identifiable data as to who tests positive. So I do that as a prologue. If we don't know that natural immunity confers protection against future infection, it's because we've decided not to look. Because I've learned that there is a cohort of people that we know have been previously infected. We've got the bench research showing that the triad of antibodies, T cells, and B cells are there, and that 92% of them are still there at 6 months out. So why have we not done the research showing that natural immunity confers protection against recurrent infection?
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to clarify this point, because I understand the question. First of all, let me just reiterate that our current stand after reviewing 96 papers and a scientific brief on this issue is that everyone who's been previously infected should be vaccinated.
But that's not my question.
Right, agreed. And part of the challenge here is, as you know, the infection-induced immunity and the biases associated with retrospectively looking at the data. Several of those papers that we reviewed for that brief have demonstrated that the kind of disease that you had at the time you had it matters. Did you have disease a year and a half ago? Were you an older person?
Can I stop you for a second?
Were you?
We could do this prospectively, because you know who is actually, apparently I'm told you've got patient identifiable data, and you would be able to say, okay, 6 months ago, we're going to start everybody infected within the last 6 months, and be able to follow their EHR prospectively to see this. I mean, theoretically, CDC has the ability to do this right now.
Yeah, that too would have its own biases. So one of the things that we have demonstrated in the scientific brief is that asymptomatic and mildly symptomatic people who might not present to their providers, might present to an urgent care clinic, who might not be recorded in their own EHR, likely have less robust protection than those who've been severely infected.
But that could be established prospectively if using the data that you have. And you could even say, if you had symptomatic infection, you don't need to be vaccinated. We would consider you immune. You don't have to be subjected to the mandate. But
if we had data that demonstrated a correlation of protection, Dr. Fauci already mentioned data that they're working on to look at correlates of protection, not just in antibodies, but as you noted, in T cell function as well. So if we were able to document a correlate of protection, we absolutely could prospectively
But this paper
follow.
that I'm reading from NIH speaks that there is durable memory of the virus up to 8 months after infection in 95% of the people who recovered, including B cells, which continue to climb, T cells, and antibody. And I'm also saying you could do it clinically, because we have data that's patient identifiable that we could go back and look and see if they were exposed. They could be in a hot spot like Louisiana, where you know they're being exposed, and then you would see, not just by lab data, but empirically. I can tell you the American people intuitively understand this, and they feel a little bit like we're being willfully blind to it. I have limited time. Let me just ask you something else. What % of CDC employees are vaccinated?
We're actively encouraging vaccination in all of our employees and doing a lot of education and outreach in order to get our agency fully vaccinated.
But the percent?
I don't have that for you today.
I'm told that 75 to some north of 75% of CDC employees at headquarters are still working remotely. Is that correct?
We are following regulations through HHS and the federal government.
No, that's not my question. I apologize to be rude, but I'm asking a very straightforward question. I've been told that north of 75% of employees at CDC headquarters are working remotely. Is that correct?
Senator, I don't actually know the number off the top of my head.
When you
so
look
I'd
down
have
the hallway, are there empty desks? Are over 50% of the desks empty?
Senator, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. What I will tell you is that we're working closely within HHS and the administration to follow the governmental rules for return to the
There was a
workplace.
recent GAO report that shows, and released in the last 2 weeks, that there's been no coordinated response from the federal government to get people back into work. Now, if there's any agency that, since we have teachers in Fulton County are back at work, that the caseload of COVID in Fulton County is about 88. At its peak, it was 606. If what I've been told by someone who, frankly, kind of knows, that people in laboratories are not showing up. I have no clue how laboratory workers who presumably are vaccinated wearing PPE would consider themselves eligible to stay at home. I say this because I just want to echo. We've got to lead by example in the federal government. If our public health agencies don't have enough confidence in the immunization and in the PPE to go back to work fighting infectious diseases, there's going to be a lot of undermining of a willingness to further fund public health.
We absolutely have our essential labs back at work conducting their essential research towards this response. And we are following the regulations and providing technical assistance and technical support to the federal government for return to work policies.
One more thing, Angus King and I had sent a letter dated February the 25th asking about genomic surveillance. We've still not received a response. You referenced it in your earlier remarks. Both Senator King and I would appreciate a response.
We'll get back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I yield.
So, guys, okay, that genomic stuff that he was talking about, what did he call it exactly? Genomic surveillance. Go check that out on the CDC website, their genomic surveillance, because you know all those variants they're talking about? Anyway, I don't want to get too far down into other areas here. I'm trying to keep these videos within a certain length. But go check that out. Genomic surveillance on the CDC's website. I'm curious now that I know that FOIA is out there, what is going to come of it? Because I have a lot of questions about that and a Delta variant and whatever other variants that they're going to decide are the latest thing. But let me take you over here. I wanted to show you this because I thought this was quite interesting when I was looking this up today. Hold on. I'm going to take you back over to Twitter for a second, and I'm going to move you over to here. What you're looking at here, can you guys see that? Hold on a second. Let me get this shrunk for you. So this is a study. This is a study on myocarditis, okay, from the New England Journal of Medicine. And then it's blocked because of unusually high activity on this site. So when you're looking for evidence of the Smith Mund Act, it's all around us everywhere. And once you start to see it, you can't not see it. And a lot of you guys know this. You know it. You maybe didn't know that that was the Smith Mund Act and how they were propagandizing us. And now the media has really turned into something that's very unrecognizable, which for somebody like me who has, that's my background, that was my passion, broadcast media, to be in a place where we are right now, where my work is censored, where I have all this access to great technology and the ability to produce my own podcast and stream that online is huge, and it's very empowering. And they know this and they don't like that. They only want the state-sponsored narrative. That's why all these giant tech entities, which honestly, Facebook was set up by DARPA. Okay, so Facebook was funded by the government. They probably realized that this internet was coming and that it was going to give access to ordinary people to be able to communicate in ways that we never, ever have before, which in that regard is extremely exciting, and they're afraid of it. They're deathly afraid of this reality in so many ways. So let me take you over here. There's a couple things that I want to share with you before I wrap this up. That there are 24 attorney generals that are currently going to be suing Joe Biden over the mandate. So this is Arizona. It says, and I love this quote. This is a great quote. You can follow me on Twitter if you're not following me on Twitter or not connected to me on Twitter, at JCherryWESU. That's at J and then the Cherry, not spelling it out, and at WESU. So when the faceless, let me blow this up so you guys could really see it too. When faceless government bureaucrats dictate what you must inject into your body, That's the furthest thing from a safe workplace. The government doesn't get to be your nanny, and it's certainly not your doctor. So the good news is that OSHA does not have the power to do what Joe Biden is wanting them to do, to mandate. Congress didn't give OSHA this power. And there are already lawsuits flying on this. So hold the line, guys. Stay steady, stay strong. I mean, I have a lot of people who've reached out to me looking for connections and ways to get the religious exemption. Many people looking for help with that. I've put them in touch with lawyers that I know. I want to know all the attorneys out there fighting this fight, and I'm hoping more will join this fight, because one of the ways that we're going to win is we're not going to comply, and we're going to fight back. And for those people who have complied, my heart goes out to you. I make no judgment. I want to be united with you. I can't imagine what it's like. I'm fortunate that I'm not in that position. I would, I understand. And this is what's so sickening about this, because when you're threatening people with the ability to feed their children and keep a roof over their heads, that's tyranny. And how people can get so upset about being compared to the Weimar Republic and the rise of Nazi Germany and get upset and say that's anti-Semitic. You don't know your history, and I suggest that you go back and you start in 1919 to 1933 and you read about the Weimar Republic and you read about the rise of Nazi Germany. Because if this isn't it, I don't know what else is. When you're talking about taking the livelihood away from people, hardworking people, nurses, healthcare workers, sanitation workers, police, fire, teachers, anybody now, and you're threatening to take away their ability to pay their bills because you want them to get this vaccine, and then you want to deny natural immunity, and you want to mandate these pharmaceutical products that are liability-free products. I'm going to close with this little video. I play it all the time. Now, this was in the state of Connecticut. This is Matthew Carter, state epidemiologist. I've played this video 1,000 times. It's up on my Rumble channel, so you can share it around too. This is just basic. It could go into any state, anywhere, anytime. It's basic medical information on testing. Take a listen. Oh no. And as I'm saying that, now I'm having trouble finding the file. Isn't that a pain? I'm so sorry, guys. That's not there. Hold on. I'm going to pull it up for you on my Rumble channel because I can't leave you hanging like that. So I'm going to pull that video up live in real time as I get that video up for you guys. This is Matthew Carter that I'm going to pull up for you. Just give me a second while I grab him. And I apologize for that. I've been cleaning up my computer, so I have to take these videos out, and I didn't realize that I did that. I thought we were good. But no, weren't. So this is my Rumble channel. I'm going to take you right over here. Hold on a second while I share with you my screen. So this is my Rumble channel. Whoopsie, 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 whoopsie. I'm going to pull up here the Matthew Carter. So this is Matthew Carter. I'm going to pull this video up. Oops, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. This is Matthew Carter's video. He is the state epidemiologist, and you can find me here on Rumble. I am at J Cherry Presents and Below the Surface. And look at this. Now I got these two silly things here. Okay, so you can find me on Rumble, and here, let me see. Here we go. I'm back. So this is Matthew Carter, and this is on my Rumble channel where I put a lot of the videos that I produce. Rumble's pretty good. I'm really excited about Rumble. Easy to upload videos. So far, no censorship, and all my work has been able to stay up there, and I'm growing my channel there, and eventually hope to join their live feed and then just totally leave this nasty censored tech behind, Facebook especially. That's now going to be like Metaverse. I have a lot to say about Metaverse and Oculus. That's part of Facebook, but that's for another day. This video is Matthew Carter, state epidemiologist, talking about testing. Take a listen. What the heck?
That are showing symptoms? Are we sort of rationing out who we can test? Because I know you said it could be the flu, it could be cold.
But
it could be other things.
this is true for all laboratory tests that are done. They should only be done on people who are sick, because that's what was mentioned earlier. Testing somebody who's not sick is much more likely to give you a false positive than anything else. So in medicine, as a rule, we don't test people who are not sick. This is not a test for, are you a carrier of this virus? The reason to do this test is actually to establish a diagnosis in people who are sick, so we know who has coronavirus infection and who has some other cause for their illness.
So you heard that, guys. It's a test for people who are sick. And since I'm on my Rumble page, I'm going to share with you another video. I wasn't going to do this, but since I'm here, I think you guys would appreciate this. I'm going to share this video with you too. That was state epidemiologist Matthew Carter. That was at a hearing at the Capitol in Hartford, Connecticut in March of 2020, right before the state shut down. I'll never forget being in the Capitol that day, talking to friends of mine that were there, saying it's about to shut down. I was like, no, they're not going to shut the whole state and the country down. God, how ignorant I was. Honestly, I didn't think they would ever do something like that. So here we go. This is, I'm going to play you one more video. This is going to make you mad. And I hope it does. This is the CEO at Yale New Haven Hospital. Special shout out to the Yale New Haven insider who sent this information to me. I appreciate your bravery and wanting to expose these people. Take a listen to this.
Although we are now requiring vaccines except for exemptions or certain deferrals, if a patient asks about our vaccination status, are we obligated to disclose this to them?
Nope. We don't have to reveal personal health care information to patients.
Are patients allowed to ask that they be taken care of only by fully vaccinated staff? No.
They can ask. Yeah.
They can ask, yeah.
So, there you have it, guys. Rules for you, but not for them. And they also flew into that climate change meeting that they had. Nobody's got to show vaccine cards. They flew in from all over the world in their private jets. Nobody had to do any of that. When Obama had his big party for his 60th birthday, nobody had to follow any of all that stuff. They was partying and doing their thing. This is a really scary time. And we're being propagandized to accept it. And it's our job to say, hell no, we're not going to accept this. We're going to stand our ground. We're going to demand answers. And we're going to hold the line. Because it's either that or it's total a dystopian nightmare. One last little video that I want to share with you guys. This is the FDA on the recent expert panel, VRBAC panel, the panel of experts. Take a listen.
Thank you, Dr. Monto. An awful lot has been said that's very, very interesting and that I agree with, and I'd like to make a few comments. I think the likelihood that this vaccine is going to be effective is pretty likely in the 6 to 11-year-old age group. The issue is side effects or adverse events that might be occurring after this vaccine. And I'm torn. On one hand, we know that many mothers and fathers and parents are eager to administer this vaccine to children because they're so frightened, perhaps overly so, but they're so nervous about this vaccine because of what's been stated, that they really are anticipating having access to this vaccine in children. On the other hand, I think we saw that approximately 68% of the children who are hospitalized with COVID-19 have underlying comorbidities. So that means about 32% do not. And then if we were to take 40% of that group that may have immunity already, we're getting down to a very small percent of otherwise healthy 6 to 11-year-old children who might derive some benefit. And we simply don't know what the side effects are going to be. We don't, for example, it's not even clear that this vaccine will reduce rates of transmission. We're hoping that's the case, but we don't know. This vaccine is probably not going to prevent infection. It's going to prevent severe disease. So my worry is that I think my thought is that this vaccine should be available for those parents who are very eager to get it for their child, and because their child has a comorbidity, or they're concerned themselves. But I'm just worried that if we say yes, that the states are going to mandate administration of this vaccine to children in order to go to school, and I do not agree with that. I think that would be an error at this time until we get more information about the safety. So I think I agree with what everyone else is saying here. We're in a very difficult decision-making process.
So I think, I think that we need to be a little more, we have to have a little more flexibility in how this is implemented rather than as a single dosing reg of primary vaccination scheme that is one size fits all.
Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Monto.
So as you can see, and he did vote, they all voted, 17 and 1 abstained, the FDA. They don't know. I put all those clips. I didn't put that clip in my Telegram channel yet, but I'm putting these clips in Telegram. They're short. That one was one of the longest clips that I had. These are good clips that you can share to your legislators, to anybody, the relatives, people that you need to speak with about these things and about your concerns as we gear up to protect our children. Because this is very, very important that we as a community of grown adults, thinking adults, really reach out to people, because we realize the battle that we're up against with the propagandized information that's coming out at us. You're not going to see these clips, are not going to be played on the MSN. They're just not on Fox, not on NPR, not on any of them. They're not going to play those clips. They're not going to ask the deeper questions about the uncertainties, or the fact that many of the doctors said that they voted for this with heavy heart and with a heavy conscience. And they should. Because did you hear what he said? He said that it's not going to stop the spread. So when you're looking at the media and all this says the spread, you got to get the kids the shots so they can protect grandma and protect the schools and keep the schools open, because spread, vaccines are going to stop the spread, blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't. And this is by their own admission. And they don't even know what the side effects are going to be. And I'll put this little birdie in your head. I'm still doing some more research on this because this is all up and new. It is true, though, and I haven't done a lot of research on the thing they replaced it with, but they changed the formula in the children's version. They've lowered the dosage, but they've changed the formula, and they put a drug in there, and it is a drug that would stem heart attacks. So go look that up. I'm going to be doing some more research on that. I want to do more research about the drug before I really talk deeply about that. Somebody turned me on to that on Twitter several days ago and haven't really had the time to start to really go read about that. But when I was watching the FDA approval process with Virbac, they said that they had this buffered version of the vaccine. I'm like, what the heck is a buffered version of it? So go check out the formula. It's very easy to read the package insert. You can go read, it's the EUA. This is still BioNTech, not the comorbidity, which is extremely confusing and should raise many, many eyebrows. Why do they have two different jabs? One that is approved and one that's still under an EUA? And why wouldn't they use the approved version of Pfizer's jab? Why wouldn't they use comorbidity? And why are they using the BioNTech? What is the difference in the formulas? There is a difference there. These are the questions that the media is not answering. They're not answering them because they are state-sponsored propaganda thanks to the Smith Mund Modernization Act of 2012 that was stuffed into the NDNA. Go look it up for yourself. Question everything, folks. Stay strong. Hold the line.